My mother-in-law slid a set of divorce papers across the table. Sign them. You walk away with nothing. I looked at my wife, Ashley, beside me. She turned away, unable to meet my eyes. Her beautiful face was a mask of ice, every trace of our affection gone. My voice was flat with disappointment. So, you found someone else? I unfolded the ultrasound report on the table. It showed that my wife was 3 months pregnant. I hadn't touched her in almost half a year. That's right. The baby Ashley's carrying is mine, Preston Vance said, walking in from the doorway. His voice was thick with arrogance. He tossed a cashier's check for $1 million on the table and told me to get the hell out. Preston and my wife, Ashley, were childhood sweethearts. His animosity toward me had always been a palpable thing. I'd warned Ashley about him more than once, asked her to keep her distance. But the Vance and Davenport families were tied together by business, their fortunes deeply intertwined, so she claimed she had no choice but to see him. Don't worry, Cole, she told me. I have no romantic feelings for Preston. If I did, I wouldn't have married you. Because of that promise, I trusted her. I trusted her to know the line. And now this. What a goddamn surprise. Facing Preston's smug face, I swung. My fist connected squarely with his eye socket, followed by a vicious kick to his gut. He flew back like a rag doll, landing in a heap 10 feet away. He snarled, clutching his stomach. Harrison, I'm going to kill you. You're the one who deserves to die. You home-wrecking bastard. I lunged at him, my hand like a shovel, slapping his face again and again. I had put up with so much from him over the years, but scum like him just kept pushing. As Preston howled in pain, my mother-in-law, Carol Davenport, gave a subtle nod. The household staff moved in. They pinned me to the floor, their fists and feet a merciless storm of blows. Don't hit my daddy. My 5-year-old daughter, Lily, came running out, her small face pale as she tried to shield me. Her tiny body was trembling violently. Get the hell off me, you little bitch. Preston's face was a twisted mask of rage. He grabbed a chair, ready to bring it down on my head. That's enough. Ashley, who had been silent until now, stopped him. Her eyes were cold, devoid of any emotion. Cole, it's come to this. I know I've wronged you, but I have to marry Preston. You need to understand my situation. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound, my gaze falling to her stomach. I remembered chasing after Ashley, all the years I'd poured my heart into our life together. I had been so blind. A divorce was fine, but I wanted Lily. My home was gone. My wife was gone. My daughter was all I had left. Carol sneered, rolling her eyes. She mocked me for having no job, no income. A stay-at-home dad living off the $1 million Preston gave you. And you think you can raise Lily? Dream on. Preston tore the check in half. He dared to hit me. He grunted. The money's off the table. Ashley motioned for the staff to let me go. She helped me up, her voice softening slightly. I know you can't bear to part with Lily, but she'll have a better future with the Davenports. Don't be so selfish. Besides, you can see her whenever you want. At that, a flicker of resentment crossed Preston's face. Lily's small hand gripped mine, her eyes red. She didn't want to be separated from her daddy. For the past few years, Ashley had been buried in work. I was the one who was there for Lily, raising her, being not just her father, but her best friend. She couldn't stand to lose me. I want Daddy. Mommy, please don't make Daddy leave. What does a child know? Go take your nap, Carol said, roughly pulling Lily upstairs. I calmed myself, knowing Ashley was right. They had money. They could give our daughter the best of everything. After the divorce, I'd be struggling just to survive. We'd sign a prenup. I wouldn't get much anyway. Walking away with nothing was pretty much a given. Looking at the faces of this cheating pair, I was filled with hate, with resentment. But for Lily's sake, I decided not to fight it. Ashley, you take good care of her. If you don't, I'll haunt you from my grave. I was a kid from the mountains of Appalachia, always curious about the world beyond the peaks. I remember sitting on the porch steps with my dad when I was little. What's on the other side of the mountains? I'd asked him. Dad tapped his pipe against a stone, his voice low and mysterious. That's another world, son, full of amazing things. My heart swelled with yearning. I begged him to take me there, but he said he couldn't go. You study hard, kid. That's the only way you'll get out of these mountains on your own. I nodded, not quite understanding, but determined to do as he said. When I went to college, I finally left the mountains behind. The world outside was just as he described. The people, the buildings, their way of life, their perspective on everything. It was all different. I fell for Ashley the moment I saw her. She was the daughter of a wealthy family. The gap between our worlds was immense. But my own parents, who'd been devoted to each other for decades, made me believe in love. I thought love could erase any difference. Back then, Ashley loved me too. She promised me forever. But after her father passed away unexpectedly, She inherited the family company and was swamped with work. After Lily was born, she developed severe insomnia from stress. It broke my heart to see her suffer, so I offered to become a stay-at-home dad. You focus on work, honey. Don't worry about anything else. It was my promise, my way of loving her. My friends told me I was a fool, that a man with no career couldn't hold on to his family. But I trusted Ashley, and this is where it got me. I deserved it. Snapping back to the present, I realized a month had passed. I had the divorce certificate in hand. I'd rented a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, ready to start over. Then, one day, Ashley showed up. She asked if I cooled down yet. Her almond eyes were soft, the corners turned up in a sweet smile. For a moment, I was transported back to our college days. But the slight curve of her belly pulled me back to reality. Ashley wanted to patch things up, but without the title. I never meant to betray you. The baby, it was an accident. She didn't want to talk about it, quickly changing the subject. Cole, the marriage license is just a piece of paper. We can still be together. She told me she was planning to buy a large condo downtown, hinting that I could move in with her. I stared at her, dumbfounded. The last shred of affection I had for her vanished. You're disgusting, Ashley. Playing two men at once, wanting everything. Since she had no shame, I held nothing back. I let loose a torrent of insults, cursing her until she was red with rage. As she left, she threatened that I'd come crawling back to her. I had 3 words for her. Go fuck yourself. The next day, Lily called me. She said she missed her daddy. Hearing her sweet little voice made my heart melt. It had been too long since I'd seen her. I missed her desperately. I bought 2 tickets to the aquarium, planning to take her out for the day. When I got to the Davenport estate, a group of men blocked my way. Preston was at their head, his right eye still swollen. The mismatched eyes made him look ridiculous. I'd heard he and Ashley had already gotten their marriage license, and he'd moved in, ordering the staff around like he owned the place. As I argued with him at the gate, Lily saw me and came running over, her little legs pumping. Preston deliberately stuck his foot out. Thump! Lily fell forward hard. She let out a little oof, her hands not getting out in time to break her fall. Her soft, pale cheeks scraped against the pavement. Her lip trembled, and she stared at her dirt-covered hands, her expression wounded. She was only 5 years old. My vision went red. Preston, you animal! I screamed, lunging at him, wanting to tear him apart. But there were too many of them. They beat me down again. My eyes were swelling shut, but through the haze of pain, I could hear Lily crying. Don't hit my daddy. Please don't hit my daddy. Wah. Preston just laughed, a high-pitched, piercing sound. Little bastard, if you crawl through here, I'll let your daddy go. He spread his legs, a mocking smirk on his face. Lily looked lost. I screamed at her not to do it, to run back inside and find Ashley. One of the staff members couldn't watch anymore and tried to intervene. Sir, if Ms. Davenport finds out about this, we'll all be in trouble. Maybe we should just stop. Preston just sneered, warning them to keep their mouths shut. Harrison, we're done for today. If Ashley weren't trying to have a peaceful pregnancy, I wouldn't let you off so easy. He shot me a hateful glare and stormed back into the house. Lily rushed into my arms, her small hands gently touching my swollen eyes. Daddy, does it hurt a lot? She whispered. It's all my fault for missing you. If I don't see you anymore, you won't get hurt. I hugged her tight, my chest aching with guilt. I wanted so badly to take her away from this hellhole, but I couldn't. I was useless. I forced a smile, trying to comfort her. You just be a good girl and listen to your mom. When you grow up and become a successful woman, you can protect Daddy. Lily nodded seriously, promising that one day she would protect me. Even though my eyes were throbbing with pain, I took her to the aquarium that day. Her face lit up with a pure, innocent smile. I'm happiest when I'm with you, Daddy, she chirped. The staff told Ashley what had happened. A calculating glint appeared in her eyes. She thought she could use Lily to manipulate me into coming back. Her mother, Carol, knew her daughter well. Seeing Ashley's expression, she guessed what was on her mind. That spineless loser isn't coming back. Mom, you know I only love Cole. And what good does that do? Carol was furious at the mention of her former son-in-law. You're pregnant with Preston's child now. He'll never forgive you. He may be a loser, but he's still a man. And men don't forgive betrayal. He's different, Ashley insisted stubbornly. Fine, do what you want. I have a bridge game to get to. Carol grabbed her purse and hurried out the door, leaving the house in silence. Ashley was filled with regret. If she hadn't gotten so drunk at that banquet, she never would have let Preston take advantage of her. She mulled it over. She couldn't give Cole the title of husband, but she could make it up to him in other ways. Knowing Cole, he wouldn't be able to just throw away all their years together. All she had to do was let him taste the harshness of the real world, then use Lily to pull a few strings. Ashley was certain that, in the end, Cole would come back to her. In the days that followed, I couldn't find a decent job anywhere. The few companies that showed interest quickly rescinded their offers after getting a friendly warning. They didn't dare cross the Davenports. On top of that, Preston had put the word out. No one was to offer me any respectable position. The only job I was allowed to have was scrubbing toilets. So, would you be willing to take a position in our janitorial department? A hiring manager asked, his voice laced with awkwardness. I could see the pity in his eyes. He was trying to offer me something, anything. I thought back to my college days. I was at the top of my class. If I'd never met Ashley, I'd probably be doing pretty well for myself by now. But if I kept this up, I wouldn't even be able to afford food. I considered going back home to Appalachia. I could build a few greenhouses, get into the wholesale business. It was a viable path, but I couldn't bear to leave Lily. While I was torn, my old class president, Mark, called. He was organizing a reunion in a couple of days. In my current state, I had no desire to go. I tried to beg off, eventually telling him a little about my situation. That only made him more insistent. Are you an idiot? With that many classmates there, someone might be able to help you out. He had a point. What do I have to lose? On the day of a reunion, I walked into the private room at the hotel, and the first person I saw was Julian Thorne, dressed in a bespoke suit. We'd never gotten along. Back in school, he used his family's money to belittle me every chance he got. Years later, he was still the same arrogant prick, looking down his nose at everyone. Tonight, he had a stunning woman on his arm. I didn't recognize her, probably his girlfriend. A few of my closer friends waved me over. They whispered that the woman was actually Julian's wife. I was shocked. The great Julian Thorne, who changed girlfriends like he changed shirts, was actually married. But she was a true beauty, with delicate features and a radiant complexion. The entire reunion turned into the Julian Thorne show. He was the most successful person in our class, and plenty of our old classmates were sucking up to him. He didn't forget about me, either. I used to be the top student. Now I was the biggest failure. He was clearly well informed about my situation, and in front of everyone, he mocked me for being dumped by my wife and kicked out with nothing. The comment made Mark visibly uncomfortable. He quickly sent me a text. Cole, I swear I didn't tell him. I knew Mark wasn't a gossip. I didn't bother trying to figure out how Julian knew. After the party, as I was leaving the hotel, Julian called out to me. What is it, Thorne? Haven't you had enough fun at my expense? He might be successful, but I wasn't afraid of him. I walked toward him, my fists clenched. If he said one more thing, I wasn't opposed to making him bleed. Relax. Don't be such a goddamn porcupine. He flashed a pearly white smile, his aura of superiority suffocating. I know they blackballed you. Why don't you come work for my company? Be my assistant. How does 50 grand a month sound? 50 grand. My pupils constricted. Thorne Logistics was the biggest shipping company in the region. An assistant position at $50,000 a month was definitely something he could afford. I wondered why he wanted to help me. He grinned. Help you? Hell no. I'm just looking for some entertainment. A chill went down my spine. He'd always hated my guts. This was about him waving money in my face, getting a kick out of my desperation. I refused. He didn't seem annoyed, just told me to think it over. I'll be waiting for your call. He made a phone gesture with his hand and got into his car. The woman with him glanced at me, but said nothing. As soon as Julian drove off, my phone rang. It was Lily. Daddy, I'm sorry. I promised I wouldn't call you, she whispered. But I'm all alone and I'm scared. I can't sleep. Daddy, can you tell me a story? My heart seized. It was almost midnight. Why was Lily sleeping by herself? Where's your mommy? I asked urgently. Mommy. She's sleeping with Uncle Preston. Mommy said from now on, Lily has to sleep by herself. But I'm really scared, Daddy. I miss you. I was furious and heartbroken. My daughter was only 5 years old. I thought Ashley would at least have the decency to care for our child. But I never imagined she could be so cruel. How could a 5-year-old sleep alone? A bitter acid filled my throat. The next day I called Ashley. Since you're so busy cozying up to your childhood sweetheart, why don't you just give me custody of Lily? She just sneered, accusing me of being jobless and trying to use Lily to extort money from her. You have some fucking nerve. I'd rather starve to death than take a dime of your money. I was enraged. Ashley was a complete fool. Whether you live or die is none of my business. You'll just have her daughter play the victim so you can hit me up for cash. She was convinced I was after her money. I told her she was inhuman, leaving Lily alone in her room like that. Do you have any idea how scared kids are of the dark? She didn't fall asleep until 2 in the morning last night. Is that how you're a mother? There was a brief silence on the other end. Then her tone softened. All right, if you just bow your head to me, I'm not opposed to letting you take care of our daughter. I didn't want Lily to suffer, but I couldn't swallow my pride. Bow my head to Ashley? Go from being her husband to her lover? What would be the point of living? But if I didn't agree, what would happen to Lily? I was lost. On her end, Ashley hung up the phone with a satisfied smirk. Cole was obsessed with his daughter. It was only a matter of time before he caved. She then made a point of complaining to Preston about how her ex-husband was always bothering her about their daughter. Preston had always seen Lily as a threat. He snatched the kid's smartwatch from her wrist. Then he twisted the head off her doll. Snap! If you piss me off again, next time it'll be your head I twist off. Lily was terrified. Her small body trembled as she huddled by the bed, her eyes red. The doll was a gift from her daddy for her 3rd birthday. After he left, it was the thing she loved to hug the most. The doll comforted her, made her feel like her daddy was still there. Without her smartwatch, without her doll, Lily was heartbroken. She was so terribly alone. I saw it all. My daughter's misery, Preston's cruelty. I had installed a security camera in her room. I went back to the Davenport estate, determined to take Lily with me. This time, Carol stood in the doorway, hands on her hips, blocking my path. Her eyes were like poison-tipped needles, stabbing at my soul. You spineless loser. You're not fit to see my granddaughter. From now on, I'll have you beaten every time I see you. You old witch. The divorce agreement gives me visitation rights. You let Preston abuse my daughter. I'm taking her with me. I roared, trying to push past her. The staff came at me with clubs, beating me down. I couldn't fight them off, so I tried to call the police. The moment I pulled out my phone, Carol slapped it out of my hand. Crack! She stomped on it, shattering the screen. I looked up, and in the distance, I could see Lily's pale little face, standing all alone. I hated myself. I hated my own weakness. I hated how unfair the world was. If I had power, if I had strength. In that moment, I was consumed by self-loathing. Ashley, sensing the time was right, came to see me again. She even offered to arrange a job for me. $7,000 a month. Enough for you and Lily to live on. What do you say? I laughed coldly, saying nothing. The woman standing before me was utterly hideous. I called Julian Thorne. I told him I'd take the job as his assistant at Thorne Logistics. I just needed to work hard for 2 years, save up some money, and then fight Ashley for custody of Lily. By then, her child with Preston would be born. Lily would surely be a burden to her. If she still refused, I'd sue. With the surveillance footage, I had more than enough to prove child abuse. Just 2 years, Lily. Daddy's coming. Julian Thorne was a playboy through and through. He'd even flirt with his female secretary at the office, sometimes right in front of his wife. His wife's name was Eliza. The woman seemed to have no emotions at all, letting Julian do whatever he wanted. A colleague quietly told me that Eliza used to get upset, but Julian had once beaten her black and blue. You could hear the slaps echoing down the hall. The memory still made my colleague shudder. And then, right after, in front of everyone, Mr. Thorne pushed her down on the desk, and, I was stunned. Julian really was an animal. He was lawless back in school, and now he was even worse. I figured Eliza must hate his guts, but it was their business, so I just filed it away as a piece of gossip. I never thought that soon enough, I would be the joke. That night, I accompanied Julian to the Sovereign Club, his favorite haunt. He had to have a few Instagram models every week to feel satisfied. But tonight, he was there for business. The client was a woman who had to be at least 400 pounds, someone with serious connections in the next state over. For a guest of this stature, even Julian was uncharacteristically serious. He invited a number of local business leaders to join them. As soon as the woman entered the room, her eyes locked onto me. Her beady gaze roamed up and down my body, and it was deeply unsettling. I knew I was a decent-looking guy, but being stared at like that was creepy. Before we arrived, Julian had told me her name was Liz, but everyone called her the matron behind her back. Liz Croft. The matron's eyes were watery, but they held a predatory glint. Her body was a mass of fat that blurred the line between her chest and her back. She had no feminine features to speak of. The high heels she wore were warped under her weight. Julian saw what the matron wanted and deliberately had me sit next to her. The woman had no interest in talking business. Her hands were all over me, right there in front of everyone. Rage simmered inside me, but the thought of $50,000 a month kept me in my seat. Finally, after they finished their business, I breathed a sigh of relief. The matron suddenly linked her arm with mine, her voice a gravelly coo. Why don't you join me for a late-night snack, handsome? Julian's eyes lit up. He accepted on my behalf. My brow furrowed. Mr. Thorne, I don't think that a good idea. Instantly, Julian's expression soured. He cursed me for being ungrateful for not knowing my place. His wife got pregnant by another man and kicked him out with nothing. What a disgrace to men everywhere. If I didn't pity him, and if he wasn't an old classmate, I wouldn't have even given him a job. As if that wasn't enough, he pointed a finger in my face. Harrison, if you don't listen to me today, you can crawl back to the mountains and farm for a living. I'll make sure you never earn another penny in this city. The room fell silent. All eyes were on me, sizing me up like I was some kind of gigolo. The matron stroked my cheek, giggling. "It's just a meal, sweetie. I'll make it worth your while." Julian was grinding my dignity into the dirt. I wanted to kill him. But for Lily, I clenched my teeth and agreed. After the snack, the matron wanted me to go back to her place to see her cat do backflips. I snarled under my breath. "Get away from me, you fat pig." Moonlight streamed through a gap in the curtains, casting a narrow beam across Lily's face. She was curled up by the edge of the bed, her cheeks flushed a fiery red. She had a cold. Her forehead was burning up. She wanted to call for her mom, but her throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton. All she could manage was a series of weak whimpers. Ever since Uncle Preston had broken her doll, he often locked her in her room. "Mommy," she whispered, but the hallway outside was silent. Lily's head felt heavier and heavier. A tiny hammer was pounding at her temples with every heartbeat. She remembered the last time she had a fever. Daddy had gotten a white pill from the blue box and mixed it with sweet syrup for her. The blue box was in the cabinet. She lifted her head, her gaze fixed on the wall cabinet high above. Medicine. On her little feet, Lily carefully stepped onto the sofa, but her legs were as soft as cotton. She couldn't get any leverage. Even on her tiptoes, her fingers couldn't reach the cabinet handle. Dejected, tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't dare cry out loud. Her little brow furrowed. She felt dizzy and cold. Lily couldn't take it anymore. She got back in bed and pulled the covers up tight, but she was still shivering. She got out of bed again and went to the door, pulling on the handle. It wouldn't open. "Mommy, I'm cold. Mommy, Mommy." The rooms weren't far apart. Ashley faintly heard her daughter's voice. She deliberately ignored it, even copying the security footage to her phone. She wanted her daughter to suffer a little. Tomorrow, she'd send a video to Cole and force him to submit. But Preston, annoyed by the noise, dragged Lily out of her room and threw her into the attic storage closet. Ashley hesitated for a moment, but ultimately let it happen. It was dark and dusty in the attic. Lily was terrified, her face chalk white. She promised she wouldn't call for Mommy anymore, begging him not to lock her in the dark. Daddy used to tell her stories about naughty children being locked in dark closets. Lily didn't dare be naughty. She wouldn't make a sound. Mommy was having a new baby. Lily wouldn't be noisy anymore. In the storage room, Lily felt around and found her smartwatch. Preston must have thrown it in here when he took it from her. Luckily, it still had one bar of battery left. She turned it on, the pale blue light illuminating her small face. She dialed her daddy's number. He answered quickly. She whispered, "Daddy, Lily's sick. I'm so cold. I don't want to be here anymore. Please, come take me away." I hailed a cab and raced toward the Davenport estate. Along the way, I called Ashley. No answer. I tried Carol and found she blocked my number. In desperation, I called Preston. It rang twice before he picked up. "Preston, my daughter has a high fever. You let her out of there right now." He was unconcerned. He laughed, saying Ashley needed a quiet environment for her pregnancy. I locked the little bastard in the storage room to teach her some manners. Is she trying to cry at her own funeral in the middle of the night? Preston's laughter ignited a murderous rage in me. The man deserved to die. As if sensing my fury, his tone became even more arrogant. "So what if you hate me? I'll be the one to discipline this little bastard for you from now on. And when my kid is born, I'll make her our slave." "Preston, I'm going to end you." I grabbed a can of gasoline and stormed the Davenport estate. I poured it all over the manicured lawn and lit it. The crimson flames shot into the night, startling everyone inside. Ashley ran out in her silk pajamas, demanding to know what I was doing. I shoved her aside and ran into the house, up to the attic. The wind howled through a broken window, carrying a few drops of rain that landed on Lily's forehead. Her face was flushed, her lips chapped and dry. Every breath was a painful gasp. When she saw me, her eyes seemed to brighten for a moment. She tried to lift a hand to wave, but it fell limply to her side. A faint daddy dissolved into the air. I picked her up and ran, a madman possessed. I felt her searing heat, and then, slowly, felt it fade away. I turned and looked at the stunned faces of Ashley, the helpless Preston, and Carol, who had just returned from a bridge game. Every single one of them was hideous. They deserved to die. Every last one of them. I had offended the matron, and Julian was furious. He smashed an ashtray over my head. "If you can't handle the job, then get out. I've got no use for you." Blood streamed down from my forehead, blurring his snarling face. But he wasn't finished. He summoned all the mid-level and senior managers, about 100 people in total, until the entire floor was packed. In front of everyone, Julian gave me a choice. Kneel and bark like a dog, or pack my things and get lost. He snapped his fingers. A female assistant brought over a briefcase and opened it. It was full of cash. "You have nothing. Why do you have to talk about dignity? He sneered. There's $1 million here. It's yours if you're willing to be my dog. Bundles of cash rained down on the floor, burying my pride. He was right. I was just a poor kid from the mountains. I had nothing to begin with. What dignity was there to talk about? Thump. My knees hit the floor. What did it matter if I sold my soul to the devil? As long as I got my revenge. To hell with dignity. Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof. At the Davenport estate, Ashley and Preston had a massive fight. She wanted a divorce, but Preston refused. Their two family businesses were too deeply integrated now. Neither could afford to pull away. Ashley collapsed onto the sofa, the pain of losing her daughter filling her with regret. Why had she tormented Lily like that? She was her child, too. Click, click, click. Her mother, Carol, walked over. She hadn't slept in nights, her face haggard. The thought of her granddaughter filled her with a heavy guilt. Was it just because she was that loser's child that she had resented her so much? Carol didn't bother to dwell on it. She just wanted Ashley to move past the grief. Lily had a cheap life, but thankfully the grandson in your belly is a fighter. Forget the past. Start over. Ashley nodded through her tears. She knew Cole would never forgive her. She was doomed to live in this nightmare forever. Tonight, it was pouring rain. Julian, looking for a thrill, brought an Instagram model home with him. I parked the car across the street, waiting patiently for him to finish so I could drive the girl home. A figure emerged from the rain, slowly walking toward the car and stopping in front of it. I looked closer. It was Eliza. The rain plastered her dress to her body, but the cold seemed to suck all the life from her curves. Her eyes were chips of ice, her voice dry. I heard your child died. How would you like me to give you another one? That night, I learned that Julian Thorne was sterile. Thorne Logistics was expanding, no longer content with its domestic market. I accompanied Julian on several overseas trips, and we eventually decided to build a new facility in Southeast Asia. The local officials were pliable, susceptible to Julian's usual tactics. After a few rounds of negotiations, everyone was happy. He was enjoying himself a little too much these days, mostly because of the fiery local women. I arranged for a few stunning influencers to keep him company, and he was completely infatuated. He praised me, his loyal dog, for knowing what he wanted. I suppressed the sneer in my eyes. He had no idea they were all transgender, or that they carried a host of diseases. I had handpicked them from a local clinic's patient list. After the incubation period, Julian got sick. His skin broke out in oozing sores. He started wearing a mask all the time and refused to return to the States. He either holed up in his hotel or went for long walks in the nearby rainforest. Cole, am I going to die? He'd ask me. I can't fucking die. You know why? I don't have an heir. The old man has an illegitimate son somewhere. If I die, that little bastard gets everything. But it's okay. Before I go, I'm going to take the old man down with me. Heh. He rambled on, his mind slipping. I offered a few empty words of comfort, then forwarded the recording of his rant back to the States. That night, I went with him into the rainforest one more time. And then, thwack, I knocked him unconscious with a heavy branch. 2 hours later, Julian woke up to find his hands and feet bound. He screamed, threatening to kill me. I waited in silence. He cursed me, my family, wishing us all a painful death. You're just a stray dog that can't be tamed. I'll kill you and your whole family. I continued to wait, until, finally, a graceful figure emerged from behind me. She wrapped her arms around me and let her dress fall to the ground. Right in front of Julian, we made love, with the jungle as our witness, completely lost in each other. All the while, Julian watched, his eyes bulging, his screams the sound of a man having his heart torn from his chest. When we were finished, the woman produced a small knife. She walked over to Julian. The tip of the blade pierced his skin, and blood trickled down the steel. You promised you would cherish me forever, she whispered. You said, if you ever betrayed me, you would deserve to die a horrible death. The woman's fair arm was stained with a shocking crimson as she began to flay him, one strip of skin at a time. I walked out of the rainforest, leaving the broken couple to their final moments. After I returned to the States, Eliza inherited Thorne Logistics. Since I was already the president's assistant, I naturally became her second in command. Together, we gradually purged the old guard, replacing them with fresh talent and completely eradicating the Thorne family's influence. Julian's father was old. Hearing his son's treasonous words from the recording, he fell into a deep depression. Eliza promised him a yearly dividend and offered to help his illegitimate son immigrate once he came of age. The old man sighed, agreeing not to pursue the matter further. On that day, Eliza gained complete control of Thorne Logistics. She promoted me to CEO and awarded me 10% of the company's shares. Lily, Daddy can finally get revenge. First on the list was the Vance family. They'd been in the wholesale goods business for 3 generations, and they were heavily dependent on Thorne Logistics for shipping. Preston's father had often entertained Julian, kissing up to him constantly, which was how Julian knew so much about my private life. If Preston hadn't been so obsessed with Ashley, I might have suspected Julian had sent him after her. I raised the shipping rates for the Vance family by 50%. The move turned heads. The hatred from having my wife stolen was a debt that could not be repaid. At the same time, any company that caused trouble for the Vances received my support, including discounted shipping rates. Soon, everyone was taking a piece out of them. Preston's arrogant, spoiled personality had made him plenty of enemies over the years. Compared to Thorne Logistics, both the Vance and Davenport businesses were small-time operations. Preston's father couldn't withstand the assault. He had no choice but to force Preston to apologize to me. They booked the finest restaurant in the city. Preston's father led the delegation, which included Preston, Ashley, and Preston's older brother. I accepted the invitation. During the dinner, I watched Preston kneel before me, his face a mask of humiliation. "Mr. Harrison, it's my fault. I failed to raise him right, and he made a terrible mistake," his father said, sliding a share transfer agreement across the table. He was offering me 20% of his company. A few tens of millions to spare his bastard son's life? Not a chance. The murder of my child, the theft of my wife. You think that can be resolved so easily? I tore the contract to shreds and tossed it in the trash. In that instant, I saw a flash of delight in the eyes of Preston's older brother. When it came to money, even brothers were enemies. "Harrison, don't push it," Preston seethed, hatred in his eyes. Slap. His father struck him across the face. "You insolent brat. You still dare to talk back." At my subtle suggestion, Preston's father forced him to divorce Ashley, to keep the child but never see the mother again. Ashley was 8 months pregnant by then. An abortion was out of the question. He also had to give me another 40% of the company's shares. It was practically handing me control of the business. But he had no choice. It was either that or bankruptcy. Throughout the entire ordeal, Ashley didn't say a word, but her eyes never left me. She thought she saw a flicker of her old love for her in my gaze, and secretly planned to win me back. She would divorce him as soon as the baby was born. She had no idea I would never let the bastard child in her belly live. She would die as a daughter-in-law of the Vance family, ending her sinful life. "Lily, I will tear your mother's soul from her body and make her repent to you." After they got home, Ashley confronted Preston, telling him she had never loved him. "How can you say that? We're married," he said, his eyes wide with disbelief. Ashley had already drawn up the divorce papers and signed her name. "I never loved you. If you hadn't taken advantage of me when I was drunk that night." Ashley's eyes were like ice. "Besides, you killed my daughter. I will settle that score with you sooner or later." Her words were like knives, carving up his heart. He looked devastated. "But you let me shut up." Ashley cut him off, warning him sharply not to speak nonsense. "Lily was my daughter. How could I ever treat her badly? It was all your fault. It was all your fault." She regretted it all. Things were never supposed to end up like this. Preston gritted his teeth in hatred. He truly loved Ashley. Why couldn't Cole Harrison just stay gone? Meanwhile, Ashley's company was also on the verge of collapse. Investors were pulling out, business had ground to a halt, and Carol was frantic. Her good life was coming to an end. She learned from Ashley that Cole was behind it all and cursed him viciously. If I'd known that spineless loser was so malicious, I would have had him killed. "Mom, he's not a loser anymore. Now we're the ones at his mercy." Ashley was indignant and began to defend Cole. The mother and daughter blamed each other. Carol couldn't accept the idea of her daughter remarrying the son-in-law she had once despised. "Think about me. After the way I treated him, how can you even think about getting back with him?" "So what? Cole and I were meant to be together. You were the one who was prejudiced against him." Seeing she couldn't get through to her daughter, Carol went to Preston for help. "Preston, you have to crush Cole. You're the only son-in-law I'll ever recognize." "Don't worry, Mom," Preston said, his eyes flashing with malice. His own position in the Vance family was precarious. His father was already considering making his older brother vice president. Once that happened, Preston would have no say in anything. Killing Cole would solve everything. If he disappeared, things would go back to the way they were. For a week, Preston staked out the Thorne Logistics building, learning my schedule. Finally, one night, as I was leaving work, he rushed me. A blade flashed in the dark. "Harrison, go to hell." Preston Vance had disappeared. Unexpectedly, the Vance family remained completely silent. This tipped Carol off that something was wrong. My own reputation was growing, The local Chamber of Commerce had even invited me to be their rotating chairman. What could a former mother-in-law do against that? Carol was terrified. Ashley was frustrated. Things weren't going according to her plan. Someone had started an investigation into her, tipping off the authorities about bribery. For example, a 3-pound golden Buddha she had once gifted someone was now under scrutiny. At over $2,000 an ounce, it was worth a fortune. These were common tactics in business. She wasn't the only one doing it. An investigation, now, clearly meant someone was targeting her. She had tried to see me twice, but I refused to meet with her. The situation at her company was getting worse, and her mother was paranoid, convinced I was going to get revenge on them. Now, Preston was unreachable. Nothing was going right. Ashley assumed Preston was avoiding her to delay the divorce. She decided to liquidate her assets and flee the country, have the baby, and wait for things to blow over. Carol was thrilled to hear they were leaving. We should have left a long time ago, and we should never come back. She was right. This time, there would be no coming back. Somewhere abroad, Ashley and her mother settled into a quiet residential community. They fell into a simple routine of grocery shopping and cooking, a stark contrast to their former lives. Looking back, Ashley was filled with even more regret. A single mistake had destroyed her family. It wasn't worth it, but she still believed she had a chance. If she could just get back together with Cole, she would have 2 more children with. Ashley was filled with even more regret. A single mistake had destroyed her family. It wasn't worth it, but she still believed she had a chance. If she could just get back together with Cole, she would have 2 more children with him to make up for his loss. They heard about a new exhibition hall that had opened nearby, filled with strange and fascinating things. They had been in the country for a while and were looking for a diversion, so they decided to check it out. They bought tickets and went inside. The exhibits were indeed bizarre. A creature with the body of a horse and the face of a man, a spider demon, a cloud-swallowing beast, and other monsters that seemed to have crawled out of medieval bestiary. Carol was disgusted. Looking at these things can't be good for the baby. Let's go back. Ashley nodded, feeling tired herself. The 2 of them turned to leave, but they couldn't find the way they came in. After wandering in circles, they stumbled into a vast, open warehouse. In the center stood a large ceramic jar, and on top of it a human head. Hearing their footsteps, the head slowly turned. When they saw the face, Ashley and Carol screamed, covering their mouths. Preston, how can it be you? His eyes were sunken, his body emaciated. He had been stuffed into the jar, a human stump. Only his eyes retained a flicker of his former arrogance. Seeing Ashley and her mother, he became agitated. Help me. Help, he rasped, writhing in the jar, his body scraping against the sides with a sickening sound. Carol looked around, and a dawning horror came over her. She tugged on Ashley's arm. This place, it's set up just like. Good eye. It's a perfect replica of your attic storage room. I stepped out from the shadows, signaling my men to block the exit. It was time for my daughter's revenge. In front of all 3 of them, I gave Ashley a choice. She could either keep the baby in her womb, or she could save Carol's life. The baby was Preston's. She hadn't wanted to keep it for a while now. But at 8 months, an abortion would be devastating to her body. You spineless loser. You think you can defy us? Let me tell you, even in another country, I'm not afraid of you. You're nothing but trash. Let's go right now, or you'll regret it. I turned to Ashley. If you don't choose, I'll choose for you. Ashley thought for a moment. I choose my mother, she said. Cole, I know you still have feelings for me. I'm willing to give up the child for you. Yes, just like she gave up Lily. I burst out laughing so hard tears streamed down my face. She was so naive. The person you care about most. That's who I'll kill first. I grabbed Carol by the hair and dragged her to the floor. When she saw the iron spike in my hand, her bravado shattered. Loser, no, son-in-law, don't hurt me. I won't stop you from marrying Ashley. I was wrong. Wrong? Go tell that to Lily. I pried open Carol's mouth. The tip of the spike pierced her throat and exited through the back of her neck. Blood gushed out like a fountain. She writhed on the floor in agony, her limbs convulsing, her face turning blue. Ashley collapsed, her eyes filled with disbelief. How could this happen? Cole, how could you be so cruel? We're one and the same. Just as cruel as you were when you tortured my Lily to death. What goes around comes around. I pulled out the iron spike. A spray of blood splattered across Ashley's face. Carol choked on her own blood, dying in excruciating pain. Watching her mother die before her eyes, Ashley felt like she had been cast into hell. Preston, however, was ecstatic. It was that old hag who had constantly egged him on. She deserved what she got. I looked at Preston. Now, it was his turn to choose. The baby in her belly, or Ashley. Preston knew Ashley didn't love him. Of course, he chose the child. But if Ashley died, it would be two for the price of one. I reached out and grabbed Ashley. She begged me, sobbing. Cole, Lily was an accident. I didn't want that to happen. I was wrong. For the sake of all our years together, please, spare me. She was crying hysterically, a puddle of urine spreading between her legs. I covered my nose in disgust, then cut open her abdomen and pulled out the piece of flesh inside. The eyebrows, the mouth, the fingers. It was hideous. Nothing like my Lily. And it was a boy. Preston went insane. He squeezed himself out of the jar, wriggling across the floor like a maggot. No, that's my son, he screamed, his eyes stretched wide with agony. Don't worry. I'll let you and your son be together. I stuffed the bloody fetus into Preston's mouth, then put him into a large freezer. I set the temperature to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Through the glass door, I watched him struggle, his expression one of pure despair. It reminded me of that night. Was Lily this hopeless too? When Preston was frozen solid, I turned back. Ashley had more air going out than in. She was on the verge of death. I asked her if she had any last words. Anything you want, as long as it's not to be buried with Lily. She looked at me, her eyes a mixture of longing and hatred. I failed you, and I failed our daughter. I thought, after all our years together, that you would give me a chance to make it up. But it's too late. With her last breath, Ashley shrieked. It was all my mother's fault. It was Preston's fault. They ruined my life. Her eyes slowly lost their light. I walked out of the warehouse. The sun was bright, the sky a brilliant blue. In the distance, a field of canola flowers rippled like a golden ocean. The wind carried the scent of flowers and earth, just like the mountain village of my childhood. I remembered asking my dad, what's on the other side of the mountains? He told me it was another world full of amazing things more exciting than our life in the mountains. Then why don't we go live there? You study hard, kid. One day, you'll get out of here on your own. Dad, I made it out, but the world out here isn't nearly as good as the one we left behind. The end.